how mountain girls came in love.
Hey folks, how are you doing today? I hope you enjoyed that little footage of me playing Tony Rice's break for How Mountain Girls Can Love. We're actually not breaking down that break today. We're talking about how that break works. I get a lot of questions about blue notes, playing blues, minor pentatonic scales, major pentatonic scales. We recently transcribed this break on stream. We stream every Tuesday night. I thought that this one would be a good way for us to try to get to the bottom of some of those mysteries and maybe help you figure out some of those questions. If you're not super theory oriented as a player, maybe some of this will be boring to you or something. But I think for a lot of you, this is kind of the information that you want and that you're looking for. So yeah, let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is how major sounding bluegrass works and how bluesy sounding bluegrass works. And it really has to do with what kind of scales we're combining with what kind of chords. So in a more major sounding context, we have major scales with major chords. Everything is major, everything agrees. If something is bluesy, we have minor scales, but still major chords. And that disagreement between minor and major, it feels bluesy. Now there's another thing you need to understand. Every single scale has a relative major or minor, depending on which way you're looking. So for instance, G major has a relative minor, and that's E minor. Those scales have the same notes in them, which means that if I was playing G major pentatonic over a G major chord, that would feel like major sounds. But if I was playing that same scale, remember that same scale is also called E minor pentatonic. If I was playing E minor pentatonic over E major chords, that would sound like blues. That's the mix match. Here's a question. If you're playing through a blues chord progression, you're gonna have a lot of 7 chords, right? You might have like G7, go into like a C7, go into like a D7. Now, if you think about each of those chords, you might ask yourself the question, what is the funky note in each chord? We get 3 answers. F note for G7, B flat for C7, it's a C natural for D. And those are 3 big blue notes that come up a lot. You know, you might have these licks that you see that go like this. You might look at that lick and say, hey, that doesn't look very much like my major pentatonic. That being a very major pentatonic lick. What's changed is all of these new additional notes. And those notes are F, C, B flat, the notes that we just talked about. You can find them here too. Here's F, here's C, here's B flat. And all of those notes are going to feel really bluesy. Okay, so maybe some of that was an F, C, or B flat, but you get my point. Now, 2 of those blue notes you're probably already familiar with. The B flat makes a lot of sense. You see B flat all the time. We call it the minor third or the dirty third around here. The other one that comes up a lot is the F. That's just the dominant 7th. It's a very bluesy sound. That last one, that C note, well, that's just the 4th. It's the 4th degree of the scale. That's not blues. But it kind of gets paired with the buddy. The C is frequently paired with the flat 5, right? Just like that lick I played earlier. It definitely isn't the lick that I played earlier, but I played something like that. And you can see, there's your C sharp and C again, compared together. Wow, that's a lot. Seems like Marcel's just laying all this info on us and I'm going to forget all of it. Don't do that. Let's walk through this break I played in the very beginning. In fact, why don't you listen to the break real quick again, just to recap, and then I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to talk about what happens in every single section. Okay, listen to the break again. Okay, now let's talk about it. We're not even going to play it. We're just going to talk about it. The first 2 notes that get played are F and G, 1st fret and 3rd fret on that high E string. So that is the dominant 7th going up to the root note. So we're already playing something bluesy, and this already makes sense based on our theory, right? we take a G chord, we turn it into G7, F is the funky note. So if we're moving from F to G, we're using the blue note that's even associated with the G chord. All right? The next thing that's happening is we're playing this lick. Remember, I'm not teaching you how to play the solo. It's not so much about that. But you can see this next part right here. That's our flat 5 going to the 4. That's the blue note that we got from the D7 chord. And then this next one, we're doing the dirty third, B flat going to B, going to G. Remember, the B flat is something that we sort of inherited from the C chord. It's where these blue notes come from. He uses all of them in the first couple measures. It's smart. As we continue through the line, we'll see some of those notes again. We see C here. We see B flat again. That's F. Moving on. We're playing over a D chord now. We're in the second line. This is kind of an interesting one, right? So these are all chord tones. This is the third and the root note. When he moves down, he's playing like the 9th and the 7th. So this is some extended harmony. I don't want to get into all that. It's interesting to say the least. In the next line, we have the dirty third, B flat to B, followed by C. It's another great example of that blue note being included. In that measure, we get the B flat, we get the F, the B flat. It all makes sense, right? He's treating all of this like G, and most of it really is, right? He's playing over this long G chord. So just using all of these notes where they make sense. In the next passage, this bend is B flat going to B, not getting all the way there, but just pushing up towards it. And right before that, he's including the F note right here too. Those are those same blue notes, right? You can analyze this in two different ways. You can look at this and you can say, hey, you know, he's playing mostly minor pentatonic and everything's minor pentatonic. Or you could look at it like, no, this is a major situation. This is a G major chord that I'm playing over. These are just all the blue notes that make sense that I can add in. It's up to you which way you want to think of it as. Anyway, let's do the next line. As we play through, there's our F. There's our flat 5 to 4. That's B flat, flat third. That's the root note in the 4th again. There's that B flat again. There's that F again. There's C, F, B flat, F. If you understand the blue notes, you can see that almost like every other note, maybe every 2 notes or every 3 notes is this blue note game. He's playing the same game over and over again. And if you understand how it works, it's kind of obvious. So let's get to the end here. There's that F. And then this ending has a really sweet moment. This. Doesn't it just feel... Well, it's because he's now playing G major. He's playing a G major scale over a G chord. So it feels like that major sweet sound as opposed to that bluesy sound. Anyway, he doesn't actually play that, right? He gets bluesy again. It sounds like this. Once again, if you analyze this, you'll see the 4th. You'll see that F note. You'll see the B flat at the end. It's all the same blue notes put together in smart ways. Now, before we move on, there is something else that you will see a lot. There are some cliches that happen with these blue notes. Number 1, the dirty third. When we're playing with the third, that B flat note, it's almost always paired with a chromatic note on either side of it. So we're either going from B flat to B to G, or we're going from B flat to A to G. And if you look through the break, you'll see a bunch of moments where we get this 3 to 4. So in the first line, I see one in that first measure. I see one in the third measure. In the next line, I see one in the second measure. I see one in the third measure. See another one in the third measure. In the fourth line, I see one in the second measure. I see one in the fourth measure. See that over and over again? And then in the last line, I see one in the very last measure. Same notes. So every single time, not every single time, but a lot of times when Tony's using that blue note, he's using the exact same technique over and over again. So let's do the next one. When you're playing with the dominant 7th, a lot of times it gets paired with a root note. So we see that at the very beginning of the break. There's dominant 7th, going to G, right? What would that be like in the second measure? This. Right there's F. It's got a note in between, but it's still going up to G. In the next measure, all of that right there is really just a root note in F. Back and forth and back and forth. We see that in the next line in measure 3 and measure 4. Those 2 notes right there. Of course, we see that in the first measure of the next line. Where else do we see that? I'm sure there's more moments. Oh, in the second measure there. It's another great example. We see that exact same lick in the last measure of this line. Oh, right here. We see it up here. There's G and the F note again in the very last line. So let's do the last one. A lot of times when we're talking about the 4th and the flat 5, sort of that area of the neck, there's a little chromatic passageway that goes from 5 to flat 5 to 4. Now, a lot of times we see just those notes in a row being used like that. So in the beginning, this first measure right here, we see this. So C sharp going down to C, that's part of it. Flat 5 going down to 4. I don't think we see it in the second line. We do see it in the third line. First measure of the third line. There it is. It's D, C sharp, C. So that's all of it. 5, flat 5, 4. This little passage right here, that 5, flat 5, 4 thing, tends to be one of the more spicy blue notes. It doesn't get used all the time because it's very, very spicy. Big takeaway, big picture. If you know which major pentatonics to use to make things sound right over major chords, you know what blue notes you can add, you can make lines like this. You might not be super fluid at it at first, but you now understand how it works. And also, if you're playing minor pentatonic stuff, all of these rules still apply. Even though the minor pentatonic has a lot of these blue notes built in, these sort of phrasing rules or commonalities or general use cases still apply, so you should think about them when you use them. I hope you like hanging out with me, even if it was just for a short lesson today. I hope you got your fill of sort of blue note talk. Remember, you can get the tab for that break at my website at lessonswithmarcel.com. That one is up there along with a bazillion other free tabs. You can also sign up for Skype lessons over there. Remember, we stream every Tuesday night. That's 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope to see you there. Y'all have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all later.
Explore the fingerboard while the band plays the changes. Yeah.